my pal. We are live in Top Tumble. Upper Tumble would be the appropriate. But where in particular? I'll tell you, shall I? This is, I don't know if you can see on the box there. Let's tap that box. See if you can see. I don't think you can. Let me move this in. You will see or hear the ambience coming from the background and all the sort of things behind me here. So this is Clwb Top, or Clwb as we used to call it, or Top Clwb. Top Clwb to our friends. We never really used the sort of Welsh terminology, but our families did. Our friends, older friends did. Anyway, so we're in Clwb. Clwb being top of the hill, rather than Clwb Ishaf is what we used to call the Working Men's Club. And then you had Tumble Hotel. Then you had the bridge, which we went on a walk through just a few weeks ago. I say a few weeks, probably 8 weeks by now. Good evening, David. Thank you for joining me. We're going to go on a little tour down memory lane this week, right back to the 80s. Let's have a look here. So, why Top Clwb? Why not? Why any club? Top Clwb is important to have light, I think, but we don't have any of that. All clubs are important in every community for one reason or another. Good evening, Bugs, Chris. It's where we share common ground, wouldn't you say? We have a nice jar of something, whether that's a pint of Guinness or a pint of Welsh ale of some kind or another, brewed in Felinfol, and then talk shop, or siarad cachu as we say in Clwb Top, or even Clwb Ishaf. So here you come, it's common ground, talk shenanigans or siarad cachu as we did back then, and even now many of you do, and those of you who can translate that, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Good evening, Lisa. Habs, thanks for joining us. It's a bit dark here at the moment. I think I'm going to have to find a light switch. Sounds good. Let's go for a little tour then, shall we? And then we can talk. It's a bit bright in the background. I'm going to take you into a little room now that you've probably never ever been. And I haven't been for quite some years. I wish I could provide a sense of smell through this thing, because it's like really stepping into the past. Unbelievable. Going around Gwendraeth was unreal, according to Habs. Yes, it was. It was great that we all got the opportunity to do that together, I think. But I want to share this with you for a moment. We'll come back in a little bit. But if you've never been in this club, there's a lot I can show you, and probably a lot I could talk about. I'll come back to you in a little bit. I'm first going to go upstairs, where I can discuss some of the memories I have of this place. Good evening, Darren Gravel, thanks for joining us. See if I can find a light switch. And we have light. Anybody remember this room? Let's have a turn around. Here, Top Tumble Club. This is where we had all our discos, all the events. That's where Selwyn, probably, and many other DJs would have set up shop. There used to be a stage there then, am I right? Does anybody else remember this? Good evening, Simon. Do you remember a stage upstairs? Maybe, maybe not. Anyway, let's have a seat for a moment and see what I'd like to talk about. Let's turn this around. There you go. So who's with me? Pwy sydd â fi heno? We'll move that there. Right. Who's to spend time in this place? Did you ever come here, Habs? I'm sure you were from Man of the Garreg. Do you use just for men on your beard? Right, let's straighten this up. There's no just for men on this beard. Not yet. I will let you know when I'm using it. That comes up pretty often. Not on you, which is a strange thing to be asking, Habs. Stop it. It's only strange because I'm feeling embarrassed. No, I don't use just for men. It's still... There's a couple of wisps of white in there. So what are we doing in all these clubs? Why clubs? Now, a lot of people sort of don't like the idea of clubs and alcohol and this kind of thing in this day and age. However, it's still a massive sort of part of our community. And most communities here in Wales anyway, whether it provides, you know, parties as it did back in the day. You had your sort of discos here, your Christmas parties. Everybody remembers a Christmas party here, don't they? I think. It's raining out, Huw, says Fletch. Thank you very much for that, Fletch. I think you know why I'm in here tonight. It's because you've cursed me. Sean, James, good evening, Mandy. So I'm in Top Clwb, okay? Now, I'm going to go on a whim tonight and not follow any lists as far as I'm aware. But I'd like to sort of talk about sort of fellowship. Here, you need a membership. Okay, this is where people come together. This is where we sort of celebrate together and share a lot of our history, our past. Our grandparents used to come here. My grandparents used to come here. My grandmother and my father used to come to this club back in the day. Let me just see who I'm missing here. Good evening, James, Amy. Any questions there? No, just from Habs about my beard and Fletch about the weather. Who has cursed me, by the way. I've had 7 weeks of perfect weather, and then Fletch comes along and asks why I don't go out in the rain. Thanks, Fletch. Good times there, says Rich. Dawn Carby, good evening. So, let me show you something here. How many of you remember this? Freestyling, good lad. Thanks, James. Let's see how I can manage it. No, I remember standing on those steps at, well, many moons I'd say, but I'd say one of my most vivid memories was standing there, a little bit tipsy, when I was about 11, 12 years of age, having had my first couple of drinks, due to my cousin Tina. I'm naming her now. Martin Harris, are you bringing your band back? Am I bringing my band back? Am I? That's a good question. Don't start these things, or I'm going to have the boys on the phone and we're going to be playing live here as soon as you know it. No, we're not bringing the band back. But thanks very much, Martin, for asking. I don't think we ever played here. We played in the Workingmen's Club. Now, the reason I want to come here, I've never actually been here. I've always wanted to come here to photograph. And when I say I've never actually been here, I haven't been here for any of my project stuff. So tonight I'm getting the opportunity, and hopefully I'm going to sort of create a few things around this. But I want to talk and document the place that this was in our sort of younger days. I'm going to give you a view out the window to show you what we had when we were kids. Stuff going on out there right now, but that leads to croissants. There's Marduk's, as we went into the other day. So just to give you a sort of point of reference, so you know where we are. So if you haven't been to Top Tumble Club, or Clwb, or Club Top as they call it, call in. We'll go down the bar now in a moment. I say I'm not going to follow any script. I feel I'm going to miss a few things out if I don't. So, in this room would have been the first time I had a couple of pints. Not just that. This is where we came for Christmas parties, like I said. So we'd run up and down those stairs from about 7 or 8. I think they still do Christmas parties here. But in order to have that, you'd have to be a member. So you'd have to have a membership behind the bar, and then your kids could come up here Christmas time, and that would pay for that. So Robert Law, good evening. let me show you the bar. Now this is one of 3 bars with a magic jukebox. Now every pub and every club needs a jukebox. Lots of magic happens on that jukebox, and it creates the magic in the room. That's besides Selwyn when he's DJing on that stage that no longer exists. Give you a demonstration. There is a PA system which might help things. However, I don't think it's a jukebox, is it? Harb says, gotta go, I'm enjoying your journey here, keep it going. Well, come back, it'll be there. You might not be live, but leave us a message anytime. Cheers, Harbs. Take care. Bye-bye. Lisa, good evening. Robert Law with the grain. Should my Robert Law from up north. This is southwest Wales. It's not even west, is it? It's not south either. So we're going to go downstairs now. Let's go on a little... What am I doing? Hitting every button other than what I need to. So that carpet has been there since I was a kid. So it's exactly like walking in time. Absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to show you a few parts. So this is the bar area. And that there is a naughty boy. There's many naughty boys in this room. Many of them. Da iawn, diolch. Da iawn. Siwr chi? Bendigedig. Bendigedig. Well, diolch yn fawr. Right, da ni cael pip yn bwydy'r lle den. Let's have a look around here. So, this room's changed quite a bit since I was a kid, but there's one thing that hasn't changed, and it's this little thing here. And I say little, not so little. That is a big pool, snooker table. Pool table? Can't be a pool table. Good evening, Jonathan, Larry, Mike. Now, those of you who call in Club Top, you'll remember, especially back in the 90s, where there you would have, even have light, you would have the pool table over there. Now the pool table's over there. Oof, big changes in the community. We can't handle these kind of changes. Who put that there? So Doris Sims, am I right? Hi John Evans, hello to Dad Key from Essex. Okay, let me say that out. Doris Sims is here. John, Doris Sims is here saying hello, Dad Key from Essex. There you go. Yeah. So people are tuning in. Great stuff. Yeah, so back in the 90s, our pool table was here, and this is where you came if you wanted to sort of compete in any sort of competitions. But I used to have a pool tournament and a snooker tournament. And this is where we'd go. We'd walk all the way from Lower Tumble with our pool cows, which were absolute racks, as we call them. And in English, that means rubbish, okay? Broken rubbish. We would glue our tips on the queue, and yeah, not so good. But we did all right as kids, and we all came miles around just to play pool and snooker around here. Well, as you can see, let me turn this around. As you can see, the room's kind of changed from what it was back then. You didn't have these things, all the achievements in the village, and then the bar itself, and the scallywags that spend time in it. So if we go through here, good evening Claire, Mike, Larry, I have said hello before. Let's have a look here. So this is the main bar. Now this is where I could do with a bit of light. Let's see if we can find that thing. No. Let's have a look. Do you know where the switch is in there? Switch for the light. Yeah. Sarah will happily turn this on for us.
In there?
Yeah, in there.
I'll do it now.
Okay, brilliant. So, much lighter without light. Let's have a look. Right, Adrian Fletcher. They still do darts tournaments there, do they? No, that's something I was going to ask just now. Brilliant. It's those kind of things. That's what these clubs are there for. Not always. It hasn't always been the same. There's been many different things over the years. But still, darts, pool, snooker. We'll find out a little bit more in a moment, exactly what they sort of do here and what they have available. But like I said, this has been part of our community for, I would say, over 100 years. I'm pretty certain it's over 100 years this place has been built. I'm guessing 110 years. We'll find out in a moment when we speak to John. But I'd like to say, hang on, and I'm sure Tina, my brother, and my family who are watching this at some point will know that was Mayor Prince's chair. Back in the 80s and 90s, when we used to come up here, my grandmother used to be a cleaner. Good evening, Marie Jones. She came from the Prince of Wales in Portheryd, and when she retired from there, she came to work here as a cleaner. And she worked here for over 20 years that I'm aware, possibly longer, I'm not sure exactly. But that's where she used to sit. And you know, when I come in here, that's who I see sitting in that chair. Now, I'm sure many of you have memories of your grandparents or family members that were embedded in certain places. I used to come up from my paper round, as I said, and was to sit there, and she'd send me over to Maddox across the road, and which was the post office then, to get her fags, but she'd get Jaffa cakes, polos, you know, all the good stuff grandparents do. Now, there's something, I don't know if any of you read my blogs over the years, but you might remember a story about my father who would come running into a room, and let me just retrace this for you. So back in the 80s, it was my grandmother's birthday, and there was a cake right here, as far as the story goes. So the cake would be there, my auntie'd made the cake, and let's just turn that off. My auntie'd made a cake. No, my father then, oh, excuse me, gimbal's going a bit crazy. That door, my father comes running through that door, and instead of running back to the chair that my grandmother was sat in, which was there, he went to the cake, picked it up, and decided to put the whole thing over my grandmother's head. Because that's what you do on someone's birthday. You don't come in and greet them and give them a kiss and a hug and say happy birthday. You just grab the cake and you put it on their head. Well, my grandmother almost killed him. If she could catch him, she would have killed him. But she didn't. He survived. Doris May, Prince the legend. See, that's the kind of thing that these places enforce. It's that sense of community. And I think this is a very important structure to any community, the clubs and pubs especially. Marie Jones, my mother, was a cleaner there to the end and run it when Pat and Gareth was running it. And run it. Okay, sorry, I can't read the messages properly, Marie. However, I remember Mag, and I remember that she was my grand's best mate and all, and they used to, the both of them used to sit here together, and yes, they both worked together during that time. If I turn this around, it gives people a little more of an idea of the size of this place. It doesn't look that big on you. It's a little bigger than it looks on screen. You can see the trophies. We'll have a peep at them now. Good evening, Brennan. I forgot about Mags, and my grandmother was very sort of big pals with Mags. So, if I come over here, let's have a look at some of the history on offer. So you can see what kind of place this is. You know, it celebrates its mining history, its sporting achievements, its Welshness, as most Welsh clubs do. So, Good evening, Kate Walters. Katie Walters, sorry, Kate. Yeah, there's some... for those of you who don't spend time here, and I don't spend much time as much as I'd like in any club or pub these days. However, I've always liked this place for what it is, and it's part of my sort of history anyway. And when we were kids, you had to walk a long way to get here, but we came here every Saturday. This was the pub, or the club, that we came to every weekend back in the 80s up to the mid-90s, and it even became part of all our kids. You know, when we grew up, we'd go on to sort of pub or club culture. We'd go to Gwenllow, the nightclub down the road. This is where we started, either here, Tumble Hotel, or the Workmen's Club. Good evening, Gareth. So maybe we could have a little chat with, let's have a look here. Before I do have a chat with John, we could have a peep again at... does anybody else remember this place as a kid? That's what I want to know. Let's have a look. Let's turn the light on. Now, we used to come in here to get out of our grandmother's hair in some cases, or we'd go and play. But this room, we used to run round, as I was showing you earlier. We used to run round on those chairs there, right round the room. But you can still smell what I smelled back then. And apart from, there was always a strong smell of disinfectant that time of day, because our grandparents are sort of cleaning the place out and mopping. But it's an absolute sort of privilege to stand inside this room, because it's almost like going into the archives of your memory. It's brilliant. They even have the same ceiling. This is great. Let me just turn this up. Now look at that. Those are polystyrene tiles, I believe. So you can push your finger through those, as you do in some places. Of course, why not? Anyway, yeah. Now, one of the biggest memories I have... Let's get out of here, get this light up. Now, one of the biggest memories I have... What's up with this screen? I want to know. There you go. Let's have a go with that. So... So in this room, as you came through that door, the first thing you saw were these machines. Now, what was good about those machines is not the gambler, but right next to it, next to the fags, obviously. And if that ran out, then you had to go down the shop. Should I call in Jones? Should I o Llanelli? Well, diolch yn fawr am dilyn ni heno. Mae'n neis i gwrdd â chi. In other words, thank you very much for joining us. It's nice to meet you. Heather, Daniel, Shmai, Neris, Lewis. Now, you all know what this was like, even then. And I'm sure none of you kids that were around back then have forgotten what was sat next to that machine. Let me remind you. Do you remember Poppets? Little Poppets, toffee Poppets, Kit Kats? Do you remember the Cadbury's Mint Crisp? It was serious. And do you know what? That's one thing that most kids used to come here to hang out for. To have chocolates, crisps, scampi fries, Coca-Cola in a glass bottle, which they now have again. Poppets machine, says Doris Sims. Yep, I remember the Poppets machine. Absolutely amazing. So, maybe, if I mention... May Prince would be up and down, and I can still see her going up and down these stairs, up and down the stairs, and she would always have this catchphrase, even then. Why, Mr. Beaver? Why do you beaver me around? And that came from a Cadbury's caramel advert back in the 80s, but that was one of her favourite catchphrases. Besides, shit off, which was op-ed. So, in that little room I just showed you was the telly room. So we'd go in there and watch Superman maybe while it was on the screen. Batman, Saturday mornings, you come, you know, with your friends or your mum, your dad, and you went in there to watch TV, run around. We never poked holes in the ceiling, however, it would have been justified. Good evening, Jem. But let's see if we can talk to John and he can tell us a little more about the history of the club, shall we? He's busy there, John. Maybe we'll grab him and pull him into this room where we can have a bit of quiet and not disturb these gentlemen while they're enjoying themselves. So back through we go here. The ambience has quietened down a bit. I can't seem to hit the right buttons. However, if we sit here, John, let's see. Sure. So, I'm out, dan ni troiwn lawr. Mae'n neis i gwrdd â chi.
A ti te?
So, beth gallwch chi weid ambiti Top Tumble then? I probably speak in English for the people listening.
Well, as far as the club is concerned, the club was been originally, it was an institute. There was a movement in Victorian times to educate the people, and I think it started off, I might be wrong, but I think it started off as a middle class thing to educate the middle classes. As time went on, the working class wanted to get in on the act, as it were, and institutes popped up in Wales to educate people. They had reading rooms, libraries, speakers, teaching people to read and write. And that's what this building originally was. It was bought, a plot of land was bought in 1906, and they built up a Tumble Institute on it. And it developed, with all working men, wanted a bar. So obviously it developed into a social club then, in around 1928, 1930, when they put a bar in here, and it's been a social club ever since. It used to have a steward, but now it's run by the committee. It's big part of Tumble. I hope it'll be a big part of Tumble for years to come.
Do you still have to have a membership too?
Yes, you've got to be a member. Obviously we accept visitors, but we like to encourage people to join the club and become members.
So what's the biggest change you've seen here? Probably, how long have you actually worked into this club?
Well, I remember coming to the club originally as a child, I suppose, coming with my dad to watch rugby matches on a colour television in the room, in the big room in there. There was a colour television in the corner. Everybody crammed round it. It was good fun, you know. But
was it one of those big screens with the sort of 3 colour projectors?
Oh, that came years later. That was state of the art when we had it. Yeah, that was upstairs. No, it was a little 22-inch in the corner, and about 250 people in there crammed in watching the rugby, watching the Five Nations as it was then. But that was in the 60s. I became sec of the club eventually then, when I was about 1987, something like that. And I've been the sec off and on ever since. Wow. You know, so the last stint I've been here since about 2000, I think, when I came back as sec again.
You've seen quite a bit change.
Oh, there's been a lot of changes.
Would you say there's anything sort of that stands out, sort of one of those pinnacle moments?
Yeah, I think the closure of the pits in the area obviously had a massive effect on the club. I mean, the club used to open at 12 noon every day, and by 12:05 it was full. And this room that we're sitting in now, our bar, was always the focal point of the club, and this place would be busy all day long. We used to have like shifts of drinkers, like they had shifts of miners. When they came off shift, they'd come in here, and you would have your guys coming in at 12, they'd leave about 4, another lot would come in, and the place was busy all day long. But that generation has gone.
Yeah.
And we've had to try and cater for a new generation, as it were, a couple of times over, to be honest.
How much of a challenge is that, and what kind of things do you have to do to sort of accommodate the... It
is difficult. We brought snooker tables in, we brought the pool table in, that was years ago. And you can see we got a jukebox here, we've got big screen tellies here. It's that type of thing, you know, that's what the younger generation demand now. They also a totally different range of drinks to what we used to serve here years ago. It used to be just beer, but now they want fancy gins or whatever, you know, just like...
Well, I suppose another thing, you look around the room here and you see the sort of sense of achievement, really, that this community's, achieved together, I suppose, like rugby. And what do you think the sort of biggest thing is in this community? Would it be rugby, or would you think there's other things these days, like darts or snooker? Or...
as far as the club is concerned, it's a big darts club. We've got 2 ladies teams. We've got teams playing here on a Friday, team on a Thursday. So darts is big. But the heart of the club is still rugby. It really is. When on a Friday evening or Saturday afternoon, if the rugby's on the television, this is where people want to come. So rugby is still a massive part of the club. Yes, we've got a good snooker team here. We've got quality snooker players. We've developed quality snooker players, great darts players. But at the end of the day, rugby is very, very important. But the younger generation love football as well. And with the Champions League and that now, we did notice in the last couple of years, Champions League on BT Sport, we get a lot of support for that midweek. So that's good. It's encouraging for the club as well.
Yeah,
it's nice to see a new generation of members coming in, to be honest.
Yeah. And do you find there's a lot of sort of youngsters coming in now? Yeah,
we have got a lot of youngsters now. They all join the club. And they're a good bunch of boys. And they're a lot of fun, you know. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we want them to be able to enjoy the club in the same way as our forefathers, and we are enjoying the club at the moment. Yeah, you know,
these are the next generation that are going to be taking this place on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
What would you say, are there any sort of, I look into some of the clubs and the halls around the community, is there any sort of traditions possibly, or what would you call it, anything you've continued over the years?
Not really continued, I suppose. That's a difficult one. We obviously we try and keep the club going, different events all the time. We've got a gin fest coming out shortly, but as far as traditional things, no, I don't think, other than, as I mentioned, snooker, darts, and the I don't think there's anything.
So something that's brilliant. It's great to learn the age of this place, and you were talking about
Yes, there's an indenture on the wall behind us, and it really gives you the history that the club was bought, as I said, in about 1906. And there's an interesting little thing on it here, that the club is actually built on a well. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
So that's where the beer keeps coming from this well, isn't it?
Yes, never-ending supply. No, there's a well in the cellar, although the well has now been capped. In the early 90s, there was a very heavy rain, and the well overflowed. Wow. And we were met one morning with floating kegs in the cellar, and we had Mr. Sodi, I don't know if you remember him from Lower Tumble. Yeah. Mr. Sodi came up to pump us out, because the overflow of the well had blocked up, But now it's been capped, but the well is still in the cellar. Wow. Yeah, it's capped, and there's an overflow that takes it out onto Clwb Road. It takes the overflow to Clwb Road, but it's still there. And the mark of the well is on the indenture over there in the corner.
See, it's amazing. It's amazing the kind of history these places have.
It is amazing.
And it's relatively young in comparison to some places, obviously in Tumble.
Absolutely.
But it was shocking to see, for instance, like the Tumble Hotel, gone.
Terrible.
You can't imagine that ever happening to these kind of places.
No.
It's a travesty, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I kind of hope, and I'm sure you'll agree, that these places will go on for as long as
we hope.
As ever.
The difficult job is keeping them open these days.
Yeah.
The smoking ban didn't help us, in all honesty, but we've overcome that now. The initial problems that we experienced, I think we've resolved, but that's our duty now. We're the sort of custodians of the place for the next generation.
Maybe bring back lectures.
Good idea.
It could be a source of learning.
It's a very good idea here.
Maybe a library and a couple of pints.
Sounds like a good idea.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much.
Diolch yn fawr i chi bach.
Mae'n neis i siarad â chi a dysgu tyn bach o'r pentref.
Unrhyw bryd.
Great stuff.
Good.
Diolch yn fawr, John. There you have it. How lucky are we to have that information? So that's a bit of a revelation, isn't it? The idea of the well. I'm not sure how many messages I've missed during that, sorry. So let's have a look. Good evening, Stuart, Megan, Andrew, John, Colin Jones. My mother was a cleaner in Clwb. Cy Rogers, sorry, back in the 60s. Spent a lot of time there. Great club. Yes, it is a great club, and it has a lot of history, like we just mentioned. So there's a well, yeah. It was built in 1906, not 1909 as I previously thought. And like I mentioned, you know, this was a place that started for learning for the miners and people of industry. It was a school for the elder, the more mature, those out of school. And I love the paintings. I wonder if they ever had art classes here. That's another thing. Why not? We could be doing those kind of things all over our clubs and helping them survive in different ways. So how can we make those things? How can we make these places survive in a new age? What can you do? Now, when we were kids, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to take you back upstairs for a moment. Because talking to John now, it triggered a memory that when we were younger, I'd say about, you can probably mark this to the date somewhere along the line. Good evening, Leah. They used to hold cinema evenings here. Now, everybody has cinemas in their own home these days. They have large TVs, 50-inch TVs, their Blu-ray players, or even sort of streaming and downloads. So why should you go to a community centre, a club, or a social club to do that? It's in the title, spending time with people. I don't think we do enough for this these days. Now, me sort of marking that time and what I'm doing here, I suppose I should mention or reflect on some of the things in life, the way it is these days. One of the issues, we don't get out. We spend so much time in front of our TVs and our internet and all other kinds of sort of social media or entertainment that we forget to mingle. But that's what these places are about, aren't they? You know, we could be spending time together. You don't have to drink. You can, you know, you can buy pop. You can buy, I want to say pop, Coke, soft drinks. You can even buy squash. Although a couple of beers aren't a bad idea. Maybe stay off the gins until Saturday night or Friday night. You could come here to learn. You could come here to watch films together. That's not a bad idea. We did it then. Why can't we do it now? And not just, back then it would have been no novelty, it would have been something special to sort of come here and watch a film that was maybe just fresh out of cinema, because video was a new thing back then. So people used it in these kind of communities. While Mum and Dad was downstairs having a couple of cans of Coke, the kids would be up here watching films. Sometimes the mums and dads would be up here anyway, enjoying themselves. They didn't want the beer. But I remember sitting in this very room, right there. As I said, there used to be a stage. Let me see. There used to be a stage by there. And on that stage, there was one of those, I can't describe it. It's something like, imagine a 60-inch screen, probably bigger, maybe 80-inch screen, with a projector. And this is to bounce back on the screen. So 3 colours. You had your green, blue and red, I think. And then it would push the picture up on the screen. And that's where we watched Jungle Book as a kid. That's the first time I ever knew of Jungle Book. There was a couple of other, maybe Snow White or something like that. But that was amazing. You got to spend time with your friends in a place together where it wasn't trash in your house. Nobody wants to trash their house. But you can run around freely in a social club. That's a brilliant idea, I think. So, you know, looking back on it, I think it offers some wonderful things to keep these places going. You know what I mean? Even if it's just like people can help out, sort of decorate, sort of put some money into the places, and think of initiatives. Now, I spent some time here last year. There's been a few things, rugby events, where my son got to meet Lee Halfpenny to sign his ball. There's been a few things on here, initiatives to sort of keep the sort of communal thing going. Let me just check this. Larry Summers. My grandfather, Ken Summers, was the chairman for several years. Hang on, let's just expand that if I can. Still have his personal pint glass he kept behind the bar. That's brilliant. There's so many nice little things like that we remember and we leave behind. You know, children of that age will remember how important community was, and that sociological thing that needs to happen. We need to be together in that sense. So use these places. And like they say, the old-fashioned saying, use it or lose it. We do not need to lose any more history. Turn that around. We do not need to lose any more history. We've already lost the Tumble Hotel, which was a huge part of our community at one time, as this is. So yeah, support them, keep them going. I'm going to have a little peep around again now, just in case I've missed something. But I hope you've enjoyed my little spell around you. A lot of talking going on tonight. Let's go back to the bar, shall we? So we'll go down the stairs. I kind of clung on to them at the age of 12 after my first few pints. My parents didn't know, obviously. It was me and my cousins having a few drinks. There the chocolate machine was. You can see it straight through the bar here with just over the door. And then, but if I remember correctly, pool table was right here. And the jukebox was up on the wall there above John. And where's the jukebox now? The jukebox is here. Should have been there really back then. No. What was the track when we were playing pool back in those days? What was the main track? I'll tell you what it was. It was in the charts for about 14 weeks, and it was Bryan Adams, 1990, 91, one of the two. I'll leave you work that one out. Anyway, it's been a pleasure. Hang on, if I turn this round, go back through here a moment. I wish I could show you more. Maybe I can. Let's have a look. Let's have a look if I can see some of the outside. Weather's pretty bad today because of Fletch. We would have been fine otherwise. So, welcome to Club Top, strictly members only. We lost Tumble Hotel and Clwb. Yes, we did, Martin, which was a bit of a shame, as I was just talking to John there. Now, there is, I know it's raining, hopefully, just want to show that we used to go up those back steps and then back to the top. So that was your way to the roof, not the roof, the top bar. And this here was a hairdresser. So if you needed a haircut between pints, it was perfect. Why wouldn't you? Evening. Miranda Evans, Huw, having to turn your sound off as multitasking editing at the moment. And it's reminding me of my Saturdays growing up watching wrestling with sound turned down. So all adults could hear themselves gossip, but Granny could still keep an eye on Big Daddy. I'll have to catch up with this later. Thank you very much, Miranda. That's yeah, it's a reflection on the times. Now there's something that we would do in all clubs is have a nose out the window. Now something is going on out there. There's something happening this evening and we're missing out on it. What could be going on? What is going on? If we go to the front, there's a fireman busy on the street there. And there's something for everybody to gossip about. And that's what it would be like. I think that's what it's like now, possibly. Now, that's a pretty good place to be right now. Propped on that, having a pint of Guinness. Would you agree? My gran would have had a tot of whiskey, I think. Tot of whiskey, hot toddy, hot water, and she'd sit there all day. And I would have sat there with her, to be honest. Good evening, Sarah Rees. So, well, thanks for joining me at Club Top, Clwb, which means, as I said, what am I on about? He's going off on one again. Anyway, I think I've covered pretty much everything I want to cover for this evening. So please come back join me next week where I'll continue this idea of how we should be sort of engaging with our society. I think that might be a bit of a theme for this one and the next. So until then, come back and we'll have a chat and we'll have a look a bit more at the roundabouts of Tumble. Until then, see you next week. Good evening. Over and out. Brussels sprout. Can't miss that one, can I?